And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 75, the Connor Clifton episode. It's the Cliffy Hockey episode. What a way to ring in Christmas. I'm Evan Marinofsky, alongside Connor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great, enjoying the Christmas/holiday season, whatever you celebrate. And it's weird because there's no Bruins, right? So it's kind of like, on the negative side, there's no Bruins, right? No games, no things to talk about. On the positive side, though, I have extra time to do some shopping. I am not doing it last minute.
You
I got
panic
some extra time.
shopping, not panic
Yes.
shopping. You're not like, it always stresses me out when Elf, when you're watching Elf, great movie, but they're heading to Central Park to help out Santa, and James Caan's wife is like literally like shopping. She got like 85 friggin' bags on Christmas Eve. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Amateur hour.
Oh,
What are we doing here?
it's funny. I had to go to Target Tuesday night to get snow pants because I'm learning how to ski soon. So I wanted to have snow pants for it. And there were so many people in the clothing sections and everything, just like grabbing stuff. It was like mayhem,
Like
and I
Dan
was very
Flash.
yeah, it was Dan Flashes. You're exactly right. And it was very stressful. I was like, man, that's a bit much for me. I don't know. It stresses me out a bit. I like to kind of get my shopping done somewhat early. Just so I have it all done. I have to wrap. Now my big thing is I got to wrap
Uh,
everything. So that's always kind of that's. I'm always like to my mom or sister, hey, can you come help me wrap this? No, I just don't like doing it. More
Put
so,
it
I'm
in a
just
garbage bag. It's fine. Like put like as long as you
exactly.
put like a little like red bow on it, like one of those stick-on ones.
It works.
I thought
It
that
works.
counts, Evan.
So, anyways, the NHL in general. Now we're recording this on Wednesday morning. If we look very tired, it's because we're recording this very early, 9:30 on a Wednesday,
Yes.
very early. But at any rate, now the NHL the holiday break has
Mm.
extended. It is now December 22nd through the 25th. The NHL said, well, if games are getting postponed left and right like this, might as well just can the whole thing. So the real question is this going to end after Christmas, right? Are we going to still be in the same predicament after Christmas? And the big question is, should they just suspend all play through New Year's to just get every team at square one again with no cases? Connor Ryan, do you think they should be canceled through New Year's?
I mean, I think they should be just to give you that longer buffer period just to figure out what the next steps are. Because I mean, one, you're seeing, more players even during this shutdown test positive. Like the Bruins haven't played since what was it, last Thursday? And Brendan Carlo popped a positive test on Tuesday morning. So you're still going to get more cases during this time. Even though it seems like the NHL is looking at going full steam ahead with those games starting on the 27th, you're still going to have a whole bunch of complications if you don't have like an extended time to kind of let this 10-day quarantine, what have you, pass you by. And I mean, from the Bruins perspective, right? Like, I think one of the main concerns for that Pittsburgh game on the 27th was you're not going to have any practice time. They've kind of, avoided that hurdle by having teams, return on the 26th. So at least the Bruins can get a practice or two in before they play Pittsburgh and what's looking like a pretty pivotal game in terms of the wild card. But then you look ahead to, all right, you get past that Pittsburgh game, you get a few guys back like Marchand, Smith, Bergeron, those guys. Then you go to Ottawa on Wednesday, and that's a whole other complication, right? Where I think you're only allowed in the country if you've got 14 days past a positive test. So, barring like my math being woefully wrong, I think at that point, based on who's tested positive, you're only going to have I think Smith and Marchand for that game.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think Bergeron. I think Bergeron would be exactly at the 14 days from when he first tested positive on that Wednesday. So you're going to be extremely shorthanded in that game again. So it's not, I think they have to I think they should push it back a little bit just to one, weed out, more of these, what seems like likely, pending positive tests, but also for the fact that, I think the NHL has to take a long look at how they best combat this. Not only in the fact that, all right, one, like some no brainer things, like you need taxi squads, you need more guys ready to go. So you're not rolling out 11 forwards or 17 skaters or what have you. You need to put taxi squads in place. You have to find some way to get cap relief so that teams like the Bruins aren't, playing shorthanded just and sending John Moore up and down through Providence just off of cap, constraints. Like teams are losing players left and right. You can't afford that right now.
He's on the highway just going back and
Yeah,
forth and
exactly.
back
Yeah,
and forth.
yeah.
Terrible.
Like there has to be some like you look at like the NBA, who seems like they're kind of forging ahead. At least they have like these hardship exemption contracts in place where they're just calling up random guys. Like Glenn Davis is going to be playing for the friggin' Celtics in like a week at this point. But like NBA is just pushing ahead with it. So whether it's those things that the NHL needs to do, or whether they're augmenting their testing, like I don't know if they'd get to the point where like the NFL, where just the NFL is looking like the cop from the town when he sees them all get out of the car and just stares at them and just looks the other way. Like I don't
Yes.
know if it has to change with asymptomatic testing or what have you, or at least it's you pop a few negative tests, you're back in, or they find I think probably the middle ground there of what they need to do is find ways to limit that quarantine, especially if you're not showing actual symptoms. And you can go down the rabbit hole when it comes to talking about that, of what they need to do and what's the safest route, what's the moral thing to do. But I think the NHL has to take a look at just how they're doing business, just because you can't have these disruptions, because cases are here. They're probably going to keep on spiking. Like it's all about how you have to kind of wade through this. And that's more or less what Adam Silver said. I think he was on ESPN a few days ago. Like it's here. And at this point, like, the train's left the station. Like it's all about how we're best going to live with it and combat it and try to, make the most of it while keeping players safe. So it's a tricky situation, but one that I don't know if you're going to solve for the NHL if you just take a 3-4 day Christmas break. I think you need at least a few more days to sort out what the next steps are, because I don't think it can stay at this kind of status quo you're at right now.
No, it can't. And I think again it goes back to, as you said, a break is not going to change anything, right? The break was a temporary stopgap to say, what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
Because this came out of nowhere, really. I mean, this, again, we were going fine. It was, we were getting along all right. Normal was pretty much here. And now with this Omicron variant, Omicron, however the hell you say
Yeah.
it, the reality of it is it's way more infectious, but results in less hospitalizations if you're vaccinated, and it's I guess less potent, less deadly, so to speak. We have the vaccines, we've gotten vaccinated, and it goes back to, well, a lot of these players, maybe go the NFL route. Maybe you say, hey, if you're not feeling sick. Now, granted, does a guy who's super sick say, I'm not feeling sick?
Yeah.
I swear,
Yeah.
I'm fine. No, it's just allergies.
Yeah.
That's the worry, obviously. But at some point, this isn't going away. We have to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And that's why we got vaccinated and those things. So maybe it comes down to, hey, we're just not going to test. Maybe that's the route that they take. I would imagine maybe the players are on board with that. Sweeney talked with the media recently and said that majority of cases were moderate, if I remember right. Right, there were not any.
Mild to moderate. Yeah, only a few.
Yeah,
And I think Cassidy said that a lot of them are pretty mild. So
yeah. I mean, again, it sucks to have. Granted, knock on wood, I have yet to have it. Not to dunk on you, but I granted this. It's a slippery slope. It's like when OBJ tweet something like, me and COVID have a mutual agreement, and then he tore his ACL like a few days later
Yes.
or
Yeah.
something. So I don't want to. I'm not screwing with COVID. I understand it's very bad, but I do think that at the end of the day, maybe the right move is saying, hey, we're just gonna not test you if you're not feeling any
Asymptomatic
symptoms and
yeah.
you're vaccinated. And again, like, it comes down to just get vaxxed.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing. That's why we got vaxxed. So.
And I also think like the biggest hurdle with the NHL too is the fact you're dealing with two countries. It's not like like the
Yes,
NBA
also
seems
that.
like the NBA, which I think is maybe the route the NHL eventually goes, where it's maybe easing testing on outright, stopping it. But I think a lot of it might be, augmenting the quarantine protocols and, few negative tests, you're back, or instead of it 10 days, it's 5 days, which is a lot more manageable, or what have you, instead of like a 2 week gap where all of a sudden like your entire team is just treading water or like walking right into scheduled losses. I mean, thank God, as an aside, they postponed those games for the Bruins because they were walking into 3 or 4 scheduled L's, even
Oh,
against teams
yes.
like Montreal. Like, I mean, we saw that game against the Islanders last week. Like, holy Christ, that game was not fun to watch. So, as an aside, thank God for that. But even if the NHL follows the NBA's route with that, where it's kind of, finding that fine line of, keeping the show going, but also, easing those restrictions while still not letting it be completely negligent of, taking your hands off the wheel, so to say. Like, you also have to deal with Canada and their much heavier restrictions, which doesn't seem like they're easing up any soon. I mean, I think I read that Quebec is now like shutting down bars and like every other kind of thing like that. So it seems like Canada's going in the other direction where they're, shutting things down completely. So to get Canada on board with that, with cross-border travel, the NBA at least has one team up in Toronto, which, like, whatever. Like, last year they said, screw it, you're going down to friggin' Florida, and that's it.
Yeah, that's right.
One team easier to manage than the NHL, where so much of it's based up in Canada. You got so many teams up there, so that's going to be the tougher kind of the slippery slope in terms of how you kind of handle that. Like, I don't think we're going back to an all Canadian division, but what exactly do you do to kind of manage those risks that come up there? Because I have to imagine, especially with these cases, most likely you're still going to get a whole bunch of them over the next couple of weeks. Like, I still feel like all these teams are going to be scared shitless going up to Canada for these games and hope you don't pop a positive test.
Yeah, that's why I would not want to even be a player right now in Canada,
Yeah.
just the way that it's going, and how they're getting more and more strict. To me, again, it comes down to, it has to be somewhat. We have to learn to live with it here. I think that's the biggest thing in America. We have to learn to sort of live with it because it's not really going anywhere, right? This new variant came out of freaking nowhere, so that obviously is an issue. You mentioned the countries, and when we're talking about countries, there's a big event supposed to be coming up in short order in a few months. February, it's supposed to happen. The Olympics, where a lot of different countries will be converging on China, and the NHL. Obviously, a lot of players want to go over there and play. This we're recording this at 9:30 on Wednesday morning. There is you mentioned to me that was it Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman said
Friedman.
Friedman had something coming around like 10 a.m. Most likely, probably to do with the Olympics, potentially canceling it. We are going to go. We're going to talk as if the Olympics are canceled because that's or not the
There's
Olympics
been
canceled.
other reports that are like, yeah, it's done. So, like,
Yeah.
I think we're pretty safe to roll with the assumption that NHL players will not be at the Olympics in next year.
Yes. So obviously, I guess that is a smart move, right? You don't need guys in China for 2 months quarantining. But at the same time, it is unfortunate for a lot of these players. And Matt Porter tweeted about this yesterday that a lot of over 30 guys in their prime, Marchand, Nazem Kadri, Eric Holla, many others, Victor Hedman,
Yeah.
probably won't get to play in an Olympics again, right? Because the next one is until 2026.
Hmm.
Will Bruce Cassidy be a coach for that team in 4 years? It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate for those guys. And it's a dream for a lot of players to represent your country and to be in the Olympic Village and all those things. And obviously there's things like, oh, you could move it to Seattle and have them play there. But it's just not the same. It ain't the same. Not the same at all. World Cup of Hockey is also not the same. It's cool, not the same. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's the right call based on a number of factors. One, you've got the number of cases which are still going to rise, which you factor in that quarantine in China, which is ridiculously restrictive. It's going to be some guys popping positive tests out there. If this is as contagious as they say it is, it's going to happen, and you can't afford to lose. I guess Martian's already caught it, but like a guy like Brad Martian for 4 or 5 weeks, right? Like being stuck in China as like the Bruins are trying to regain, points in the standings, and him just completely out of commission. You can't have that. You add, the fact that the schedule the way it is, which I imagine is what the NHL is going to probably put at the forefront instead of it being like COVID. It's going to be like, no, we got to make up these friggin' games, which is accurate. You can't be playing these regular season games into the middle of May now, considering you're already still trying to play catch up. It's been 2-3 years now where the NHL is trying to get back on an 82 game schedule, have somewhat of a normal year. So, even though I think we've talked about the schedule that, you got to contend with Disney on Ice and, all these other concerts, the NHL still needs to go and fill out that 3-week break with as many games as they can to kind of get this season back on the road and get started again. And even like, if you're the Bruins, you hope you're able to maybe push some games up just so you don't have that crazy stretch to end the season where even if the Bruins make the playoffs, they're going to be probably gassed going into it because they got so many games to make up. So it's a really unfortunate situation, as you said, especially, I mean, it if the Olympics worked out perfectly, it usually benefits all parties, right? Because especially now, you'd have guys like Pasternak and McDavid and Matthews, all these guys make their debuts. Um, it's not going to happen now. And now, as you said, I think that the toughest break is these guys who have been at the top of their game for, you know, 5 years, almost an entire decade. I mean, like the fact that Victor Hedman hasn't been, in the Olympics is wild, considering how good he's been. And a guy like Martian, who has stated many, many times over his career his dreams of being an Olympian, and a guy who's elevated his game for, again, probably the last 5 years, is arguably the best left wing in the game. To not get a chance even to represent his country, it's tough. Like it sucks, and of course, the players are going to be really disappointed that it's come to this, considering it's something that they were willing to make concessions for during the CBA extension, just to to get the chance to play in the Olympics again. So it's a crappy situation all around. But when you look at kind of like the bottom line in terms of the risks involved with it, the potential for these quarantines, and the fact that you just got to desperately make up these games, like if they somehow cleared the Olympics and had them play in it, I'm sure some of the players would be happy. But you look at that schedule, like you can't expect to like go on a deep run, even like if this team adds a legit piece or two. When you look at how crazy that schedule is down the stretch, right? It's not conducive at all to any success in the playoffs if you're subjected to that kind of workload down the stretch. So something had to give, and when you're the NHL and you're making a bunch of money, it's usually going to be the Olympics. Then you have no kind of real control over that gets the axe. So it sucks. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of what you had to do in this circumstance.
No, it's unfortunate. It sucks. I mean, again, it's no fun for anyone. But you mentioned the schedule. The Disney on Ice games are or Disney on Ice is the TD Garden during that time. Get creative where you can play. As Spoke Z said, go play at Hockey Town in Saugus, or go play at New England.
Home ice advantage.
That would be crazy home ice advantage. I would feel so bad. I haven't been there in a few years. Maybe they've updated the locker rooms. Probably not.
Probably not.
So that'd be probably not. That'd be very tough for the opposing team's locker room. What that would be like. That would be like you're in a closet. Or New England Sports Center. Play out games at New England Sports Center. There you go. You'd have the whole NHL at New England Sports Center at this point. There's so many friggin' ranks. So it's funny. I just looked at Twitter, and Jay Fresh, he's been doing these like polls for fans, and it was like, who are the top centers in the NHL? Obviously, McDavid was 1, Matthews 2, McKinnon 3, Draisaitl, Crosby, Barkov, Point. Bergeron wasn't until 8, but still, Bergeron top 10 center in the NHL. I would say. I'd say a little higher than that, but what are you gonna do?
Could be set up for another nice Selke campaign. So
yes. If games are ever played again.
Yeah.
So let's get to hockey news. Let's get to real hockey things. Bad news: Jakub Zboril out for the season, which is what we feared. Mark Diver had tweeted that he had a real knee injury and was going to be out for some time. It was confirmed on Tuesday morning, I believe, that he had torn his ACL. He'd had surgery to repair it. Terrible luck. Terrible, terrible, terrible luck. Just as the guy was really starting to solidify himself on that back end, looked great. I mean, he looked good. Like, that was a real defenseman. And someone who could have really helped you a lot down the stretch. Out with a torn ACL, just horrible luck. And it comes down to, his RFA deal, I believe, is expiring at the end of this year. They can offer him a qualifying deal, correct?
I believe so, yeah. He's an RFA.
Yeah, so again, as they've learned with Kasha this past offseason, offer the guy a qualifying deal. But just terrible luck. And, I mean, what comes of this? I mean, does this kind of solidify the fact they need to add another defenseman at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those tough breaks. Not only just, for the player, you feel for him, because as much as he's had to deal with his narrative about him as a first-round pick and being a bust and all these things that he's been very candid about, it sucks because it seems like he's finally putting it all together this year. And I think a lot of people tweeted that or mentioned that as, that he's finally put it all together. And people were like, well, he still wasn't a top pairing. Yeah, no shit, guys. But you know what? He looked like, he looked like a solid everyday NHL player, which, considering how much the Bruins have struggled to get homegrown talent that has really carved out a role as an everyday effective NHL regular, you take it. And Zboril, I think, was playing very, very good over those, I think it was 9 games he played this year. He really solidified the back end of that depth chart for the Bruins. And even whether it be him with like Mike Riley, who's had his warts this year. You know, played well with him, even though Zboril was on the right side. To like, you even had arguments like, hey, maybe we should put like Zboril with McAvoy, see how he looks there. Like, it wouldn't have been out of the question because he looked kind of good wherever you put him. So he was, not only the fact that he was playing well, but he was a useful piece, a solid cog to have for this team in terms of its depth chart and where to kind of slot him in. Because, as you said, even though you've got guys that can slot in now, I mean, John Moore, Connor Clifton, maybe like Jack Ashan gets another shot a little bit further down the road. It would have eased a lot of your headaches and a lot of your issues if you just, had a guy like Zboril that you could plug in there and roll with it, right? Like it's almost like when you lost John Moore and Kevin Miller during that 2019 run and Connor Clifton kind of stepped in, like it's one less problem to worry about where you have a guy that can just plug in there, he's going to perform well. So maybe Clifton rebounds, or it's John Moore, who, I don't think has looked particularly bad since, when he's been in the lineup. I think he's been pretty solid if he can stay healthy. But it's just, it's a tough break for a guy like Zboril who desperately needs a break and has not got one so far, even when he's kind of put everything together. So we hope he's able to build off of it and come back stronger next year and really kind of solidify one of those roles, because they desperately need that out of one of these younger players. But in the short term, just looking at this season, it's just a tough situation for everyone involved, because the Bruins desperately could use them, and you want a guy like Zboril who's been candid about his struggles to really succeed and put it all together, and it looked like he was doing that right before this injury.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, I hopefully for his sake, I hope that he can come back next year and be a similar guy, just for him. Just to get that confidence back and be like, hey, you know what, I was doing pretty well before the knee injury and kind of rebounding from it. But this segment's perfectly into our big segment of today's show. What should the Bruins ask for Christmas? Because Christmas is a few days away, and Santa will come and bless the Bruins with something, put it under their tree, and maybe it'll be like, Tomas Hertl under their tree for nothing. Oh my God, this is the best Christmas ever.
Tomas Hertl,
but I'll let you go. What were you going to say?
I said Tomas Hertl was like, how did I even get here? Why am I?
I didn't know it was made in, the North Pole and I thought it'd be a trade, like, how Christmas you don't pay for the gifts that you receive. So maybe get Tomas Hertl. But I'll let you start. What should the Bruins ask for Christmas?
Evan, I'm going to piss off about half of our listening audience here.
Oh, God.
I'm going to say they'd love to have Tuukka Rask on a cheap contract for Christmas, because as much as Linus Ullmark seems like he's putting it all together and Swayman's been pretty solid, I still think you look at the schedule where, as I said, they're playing like 56 games in like 58 days. You need another legit goalie in there. Even if it's a 3-man rotation, you look at that schedule, you desperately need someone. And, I think our buddy Ty Anderson mentioned it, that as good as Swayman's been in spurts this year, I think his numbers against teams with winning records is like, I think 1-4 with like a 904 save percentage. Like, he's a very promising player, and, I think he's only going to get better, but he still has some flaws in his game that he needs to work on. And so if you get Tuukka Rask available and he's healthy on a cheap deal for a minimal cap hit for this year, and it helps you, one, solidify that goalie rotation, and two, gives you at least another body you can rely on during this hectic stretch to end the year. Seems like it helps everyone out. So I'm going to go with Tuukka Rask on a cheap contract is what the Bruins should ask for Christmas. What about you?
The YouTube commenters are
just blocking me. Yeah, exactly. People are punching the steering wheel. People are walking with grocery bags and kicking them. They're punching the groceries of complete strangers. Just threw everything into chaos. But
they're slamming grocery carts into other grocery carts.
Exactly.
Just
yeah.
Angry. Getting people all pissed off during the Christmas season.
Yeah, just introducing chaos to the holiday season, Evan.
Yes, mine's a little more tame. So there's one that I could go with that I'll still mention after. But I think the biggest gift you need the Atlantic Division ahead of you to start sucking. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but you need Toronto or Tampa and/or Florida and/or Detroit to really start to hit the skids to get you back in contention. Because right now, at this rate, you're going to be a fringe wildcard team, right? Tampa's, ahead of everyone. Toronto's right behind them. Florida's right behind them. There's a little drop off. Then there's Detroit, and then you're 3 points behind Detroit. Now, obviously, you have your points per percentage wise, you're better than Detroit. But still, they have games to make up. But are you super encouraged that the Bruins are going to dominate those games? I don't know. So you need those Atlantic Division teams to really start to struggle a bit, not be as good as they are. I mean, we remember, I think it was 2018-19. The Bruins went on a run at one point in the back half of the year. But you know who else went on a run during that time? Toronto and Tampa. So you need those teams to start to struggle so you can catch up some ground when you're fully healthy and back and playing. So for me, my gift is Santa's going to bring you or bring struggles to Tampa and Toronto and Florida. Maybe you don't get a gift, but the real gift is the gift that you don't get, right? Santa, like, Santa, like, what's the word? Sabotages.
He's like the aliens from Space Jam. He takes their talent away from them for.
Yes. He and
he's working for an alien mob boss, Danny DeVito, like the alien Space Jam.
Yes, he takes, like, Steven Stamkos' stick and cracks it in half. It's like, you're not going to shoot this year. And then he goes to Toronto and he like sticks a knife in Marner's leg and says, you're not going to skate at all. You're not going to be this fast.
That's very odd, bizarro Santa Claus, but this is like a vigilante. This is like Batman Santa.
For my Warzone friends out there, it's like Krampus. You don't know Krampus at all because you don't play Warzone, but he's the guy. He's technically like Bad Santa who runs around the map and tries to kill you.
I love Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton.
Or him, or that. That also works out fine.
That's the Santa that shows up for the rest of the Atlantic Division. It's Billy Bob Thornton as Santa Claus and Bad Santa.
Yes, that'll show up, and that'll be what brings the struggles. But yes, the gift the Bruins get is struggles for all the other Atlantic Division teams. My other gift would be you need your depth scoring to start. That's really what you need. You need Nick Foligno to score. But
they need new sticks. They need to start scoring more. They gotta get rid of that old equipment.
Well, nothing was better waking up on Christmas as a kid than going downstairs and seeing like a brand new stick. Or like my parents would do the famous thing where like your big gift will be skates. So, you're going to come and get them fitted and everything. And so I'd go down and my big gift would be a gift that I knew I was getting. So I'd be like, oh, nice. Aren't you thankful? I was like, well, I knew I was getting it.
Yeah.
Come on. They're fine. I'll take them. But it was always nice to get new equipment, especially the new stick. That was like the biggest thing. Get a new stick for Christmas. It was the greatest day ever. So, anyways, any big plans for you for Christmas? Anything you're doing that's crazy?
Nothing wild. We got the usual family traditions, hang out on Christmas Eve, have a nice little shindig, get up early, open up gifts, all that fun stuff. The usual routine. I don't imagine it's different for most people, but always good to have a few days to relax, hang out with the family, celebrate Christmas and the holidays. So again, want to give a shout out to all of our loyal listeners. Hope everyone is having a safe Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And hopefully we'll be able to talk hockey again with all of you shortly after the break. Or maybe not, because we said they should not play until New Year's. But hopefully very soon we get more tangible news we can talk about.
Yes, hopefully that is the case. But anyways, Connor, what can people look forward to over at BSJ? And also, BSJ would be a pretty damn good gift for Christmas, if I'm not mistaken.
That is a great idea. If you're still looking, if you're like the mom and Elf and you're still trying to do some desperate shopping on Christmas Eve, what better thing than to buy a gift subscription to BostonSportsJournal.com, where we have news on everything, whether it's the Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, all that stuff. We have daily news coming out every single day. So want to buy a subscription, subscribe to BSJ. That'd be fantastic. As for what you can look for from me on the site, we'll be continuing to follow any news about COVID, about the next steps for the Bruins. This weekend, I'll be doing a list kind of similar to what we talked about of what the Bruins should ask for Christmas. So I already gave away one of them, but we'll have a few more things for them to look at. So have all that stuff over at BSJ. So subscribe, buy a gift subscription, all that good stuff. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can also do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your day.